I've never thought I'm gonna switch to iPhone, but I did. For a month. Am I planning a comeback to Android? Here's all about the journey and the challenges I tackled along the way. Let's inspect. Hey everybody! Great to see you here. I'm Michael, the Tech Mishka, and I know that this comes as a surprise to many people because everybody around, especially my friends and relatives, they know me as the Android guy. Actually, some friends had to send me a message just to confirm the color of the bubble. But let's put this aside. The truth is that in the past few years, I've been preparing for the switch from Android to iPhone. It's been a long process. Like I got used to iOS gestures over time. I made my wife and son switch to iPhones and they're pretty happy about it. Happened a couple of years ago. I bought myself a Mac Mini, something I'm going to tell you more about in one of the next videos. Generally, there have been a lot of things I did consciously in order to use iPhone 16 Pro during the entire November in 2024. A smartphone which, according to the famous camera review website DxOMark, is the fourth best camera on the market, the second best if we exclude the Chinese smartphones, the absolute best if we ask the iPhone user community. So how did it go? Did I decide to go back to Android in the end of the month? And what will happen to you in case you decide to go on the same kind of journey? Let me show you. It is all quite premium, beginning with the shopping experience, because Apple stores are always shiny and stylish. Most competitors want to look like them. The price is premium too, and I will circle back to this in the end of the video. Unboxing, I'd say no longer exclusive to Apple devices only. I feel that Google, OnePlus, even some other brands can match or even do better than Apple. But undeniably, there's nothing that would feel cheap and poorly made inside. Now, when it comes to migration, because that would be kind of the starting point, yeah, there are a few key takeaways over here. Actually, switching from iPhone to iPhone, let's say the old generation to the new one, that's brilliantly easy. From Android to iOS, there's a dedicated smartphone app, and I can assure you that the overall experience now in 2024 is significantly better as what I can recall it used to be 2 or 3 years ago. The finally is a way to also migrate your WhatsApp data, but remember that it only works at the first time setup or right after a factory reset. Since WhatsApp and other messengers such as Viber use databases, they have different structure for the different platforms, with the latter one unfortunately not being migratable at all in an easy way or without having to pay for extra apps. I got all of my calls, messages and photos easily transferred, worked really fast. Pretty sure that you may experience some frustrating moments if you come from an older or much weaker Android smartphone. My honest advice, do not let your iPhone be the only Apple device, because the integration between the various iServices is delightful. Being able to take a phone call while you're watching a video on your iPad, it feels so natural, and Android is still not as good about it. Transferring files between smartphones is ridiculously easy with AirDrop, but after so many years, there still is no way to do it easily between iOS and Android devices and vice versa, or between Android devices only. Apparently, the iWay is as simple as pointing and accepting, regardless of the age of your iPhone, not bound to Wi-Fi or other cloud services. There for sure are a lot of other scenarios and examples, and hey, I want to hear from you. Which is your favorite Apple exclusive feature when it comes to the ecosystem? Let me know in the comment section below the video. And now I want to switch the discussion to the camera experience. On one side, it's been fabulous. On the other hand, it felt limiting. But I'll start with the good. When it comes to video recordings, because iPhones since a couple of years have deployed something similar to IBIS, in-body image stabilization, as they call it, since the shifting technology, it means that you have the absolutely best stabilized video at low light without jitters, because even the best Android smartphones are still relying on optical image stabilization, which definitely messes up with how the lights are represented, especially at dark. Also, iPhones can record ProRes video, uncompressed format similar to what RAW represents for photos, but here's a catch. With the 128GB edition, Apple force you to use external storage for that purpose, kind of nasty, and they don't really disclose it properly. If there's a good amount of light, the video quality is close to a pro-grade camera. Photos are also remarkable most times, but I failed to get impressed by any of the camera modules. They are good, of course, maybe even great, but the much longer than the usual minimum focus distance of the main camera annoys me. The 5x zoom camera is also a bit demanding about composing your shot, yet represents the perfect focal length. The macro photography is implemented in a rather weird way, at least in my understanding, and the auto trigger is annoying. The portrait photography is also not what I expected. Truth is that with the Galaxy S24 Plus, which relies on a close to 3-year-old camera stack because Samsung reused it for a few generations already, or with the Google Pixel 8 and 9, I felt much more confident that the end result is going to be great from the first shot. Quickly moving objects, apparently indoors, are not a good friend of iPhone's camera, but on the other hand, it can give you a much more natural experience. Some Android phones, such as the mentioned Google and Samsung models, use too much of AI in order to enhance the photos. So if you are fans of non-overprocessed snaps, you probably will enjoy a lot what Apple have to offer, but even though I personally belong to that particular group of people, it doesn't convince me enough. Still, the ultra-popular DxO Mark team gives the iPhone 16 Pro a super high rank, and their judgment is perhaps a lot more trustworthy. So, which is this thing that you want to do after you take a lot of photos and videos? Well, for sure, you want to have them backed up. And this is where I started to feel very uncomfortable with some of the iPhone-related services, because I don't like the concept of iCloud. It seems to be a must-have no matter what. Even if you don't use it for backing up photos and videos, you wouldn't have enough free space within just a few days, even for maintaining a backup of just the settings of your smartphone, and you will be tricked into paying a monthly subscription. True, it is only $1 per month for the cheapest one, but it's just the beginning. You can find similar stories with Apple Music and the TV services, and all of a sudden you may find yourself paying close to $30 per month just to be loyal with your favorite brand's offering. It's 1/3 of the price of an iPhone that you may pay per year, which is quite a lot. But probably this also is not a deal breaker for most of you. Actually, my biggest frustrations are related to the operating system, not the entire one, because if we think about responsiveness, smoothness, features, grouping of the settings, it's actually adorable. And yet, coming from Android, I felt trapped. I've heard from many friends that the keyboard in iOS is the best and so much better than Samsung's. Well, if you compare against Samsung's keyboard indeed, I may agree. Both are ineffective in my opinion, but man, it feels so primitive using the default iOS keyboard. What is even more frustrating is how Apple let the integration of third-party keyboards happen. Take Gboard, for instance, where you can't really use the best features that are present on Android, and for some crazy reason, whenever you type passwords, you still have to use the iOS keyboard. This has been by far the most frustrating thing to me. Gboard on iOS is a pale copy of the beast that we have on Android. The home screen and the grouping of the icons, this is just ridiculous. I mean, super ineffective, and nobody can convince me that Apple can't do better. Changing a ringtone to your favorite song, the customizations of the control center, it's so weirdly limited. You're not in control of what you actually need. I dare you, try to quickly disable the location services from the quick toggles. Guess what? There is no more such an option. Here's another one. Have you ever tried selecting all of your photos and deleting them? Nah, no such thing. Let me show you the fastest way. Oh, that's really user-friendly. Sarcasm mode deactivated. Or disable the alarm before it goes on just for today because you woke up on your own. Oh wait, not possible. 5 rows of icons on the home screen? Same thing. I can't even make the freaking calendar widget to show me the forthcoming events like the most basic calendar widget on Android. With this phone, I've had freezes twice, and I can't recall something like that happening to me while reviewing smartphones in the past couple of years, probably even longer than that. And there have been a few little software glitches here and there, and actually I do have witnesses to back my words. Of course, there are plenty of things that I loved. The privacy controls, and here Google must follow Apple's lead. Or the already mentioned AirDrop, or the way the settings menu is organized, pretty neat. Or the dynamic island, I thought it's the stupidest thing ever, but Apple have made it so functional that you get addicted to it. Or the family groups, or the Find My feature, which is absolutely great too. The sound of the speakers, well, I personally believe this is the best sounding speaker on a smartphone, period. The dedicated camera button is also nice, but if you use a phone case, it's almost useless. On the Android side, a double press of a button to launch the camera exists since a decade or so. I also loved the silence button. This must become a standard feature for practically every smartphone. Probably you wonder how I feel about the battery life. Truth is, I was expecting more. Probably I got hyped too much. On one side because of the modern processor inside and the promises that Apple made, and mostly because of the promises of the Apple community that 16 Pro has amazing battery life. It is in no way better than my previous daily drivers, and charging, well, it is somewhat slow. From a person making jokes about iPhone users that they're tied to their chargers, I have become that guy in the last month. The fact that iPhone 16 Pro can't top up the battery within 20 to 30 minutes made me carry a power bank all the time. Among the areas I enjoyed the most is the gaming smoothness. The only true competitors from the Android side are the phones working with the latest Snapdragon 8 series. Probably now the 8 Elite could be even slightly better, but hey, amazing job done by Apple. And I love not just the smoothness, but also the visual experience. Fun fact, most display tests point to iPhone 16 Pro as being just average or above average, but the auto brightness tuning, just brilliant, not as jumpy as what we have on most Android devices, and the colors are perfect. Might not be the most color accurate, might not be the greatest refresh rate on the market or the one with the thinnest bezels, but I'd love to carry on using this particular display. And since we're talking about overall performance, it is spot on. Perhaps iPhone 16 series, especially the Pro models, have as much computing power that you would be happy enough for the next decade. I've told you about the games, it's the same with every single app that I've tried. Optimized. Everything feels and behaves the same way. Consistency never seen on the Android side. Over there, some apps feel in a very different way. I find it quite amazing that Google Chrome works far better and smoother on iOS as opposed to on Android devices, even if we compare it to the Google Pixel. Well, I can't keep quiet about the gestures and their weird implementation, because sometimes in order to go back, you have to tap on the upper left side on the screen, not really easy with the XL versions in just one hand. The last topic I want to touch base on naturally leads us to the conclusion, because here I want us to discuss the price point and the value of the smartphone in the long run. And something I learned the hard way is that once you switch to iPhone and the Apple ecosystem, everything all of a sudden becomes significantly more expensive. You know, the screen protectors, the phone cases, the chargers, the cables, basically almost everything you are about to buy for your iPhone is somewhere between 30 and 50% than the same kind of devices for other brands such as Samsung and Google. And that's, in my opinion, way too much. On the other hand, the variety of accessories is mind-blowing. The other big advantage when it comes to the financial part is something you're going to sense in probably 2 or 3 years after you get yourself a new iPhone, and that would be the resale value over time. And I'll give you a simple example here. Google Pixel 8 Pro that has been launched in 2023 was offered for about half of its price as a new one during the Black Friday campaign in 2024. So we can say that it lost almost 50% out of its value as a new smartphone. With Apple devices, this can never happen, or probably it would. It's just gonna last 2 or 3 years on top of what I just mentioned. And most likely when you have to sell your old iPhone in favor of getting a new one, you're about to get much better deal after all. Now, to the big question, after spending a month with iPhone 16 Pro, did I go back to Android? And maybe you were able to sense the answer this far. Yes. I've switched back to my good old Galaxy S24 Plus. I'm really happy about it, but I feel it's not really a closed door for me. So it could be that at some point I decide to give it a try once again, because the experience is really very, very positive. Apparently, I can't talk about how much better iPhone 16 Pro is than the iPhone 15 Pro, but for sure, if you're switching from Android to the iWorld, that's definitely a fantastic smartphone. So that's been most of what I wanted to share with you, buddy, in regard to the 16 Pro. And I say most of it because there have been a lot more things on my plate. Just wanted to keep the video in a tolerable length. But everybody's welcome to join the comment section below the video and talk about switching from one ecosystem to another. Thanks a lot for watching this episode till the end. I'm the Tech Mishka. Really look forward to seeing you in the next episode, therefore, subscribe. Bye.